Cool. Well, here we are again, talking about coaching. I'm here with Sivash and Nikki, and I'm Yannick. And I've had a question posed to me that reminded me of me having that question, because at some point I remember I found out about a coach who was charging like thousands of pounds for a single session.
Wow.
And I thought, nobody can possibly be worth, like, I think back then it was $2,000 for a single session.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had somebody in a recent different interview podcast, somebody said like, well, who on earth would be worth £5,000 for a session? There's coaches who charge you £10,000 for a session, and you have to go fly to America in order to spend, like, I don't know, 2 hours with them. And
wow.
I remember as if it was yesterday when I came like fresh out of training. I was still in training. Maybe I don't remember it as well as yesterday, but you know, it's like, who on earth is worth that much money? So I wanted to bring that in for us to discuss, because a lot of thoughts have formed, but I kind of wanted to put it into the room first and see what you do with it. You know, is anybody worth £5,000 or dollars? Doesn't even matter at that point anymore. For 2 hours of their time. What are your initial thoughts? Because I know you will have, knowing you have a lot of thoughts around that, and I wonder as how much we are aligned by now.
Yeah, and my natural, like, thinking would be like, no, that's like, you know, it would be a no. But actually, if you really slow down to it, right, I think coaching can be life-changing.
How would you convince somebody that says that's crazy?
Yeah.
You know, like, imagine you're in a dinner party and somebody's asking you, I've heard about this coach and he's charging 5,000 per session. That's ridiculous, right? Right?
Yeah.
What would you respond?
Well, I would look at the, you know, I think if we kind of have a discussion about the price, you know, we can go left or right. But if you really look at it, those coaches are probably solving a big problem, right? And I just personally think that if, for example, if I had a problem in my relationship, and it would mean, you know, if this wasn't solved, it's going to be either break up, right, or stay together, you know, that would be worth a lot of money.
Well, think about one of the recent sessions that we've done, actually quite recent for us, maybe not so recent for you. You said, look, there's no guarantees, and there's no refunds. You know, if I pay 5,000 for a single session, like, first of all, I'd be skeptical about, is one session enough to solve this problem? Do I get my return on investment? Or what is it that gets so powerfully unlocked? And how the hell do they do that? I mean, they're coaches, they're not magicians, right?
Yeah,
good point. Very good point. I think I've seen people do this, right? I've seen one of my NLP trainers, you know, he was really good. And he would often be able to, for example, you know, someone had a very big speech coming, a politician, and they said, you know, well, I need help, you know, getting rid of this fear, or I need help becoming more confident. And they would do a bit of NLP coaching with them, and it was most of the time it's done in 2-3 hours.
Wow.
Right.
NLP can be quite powerful.
Or getting rid of phobia, right? And so people would come to him, right? Really, you know, they had a big event going on. And he would be able to actually get rid of that. And I think with him, again, wouldn't be, you know, I'm sure it's not 100% of the time, but he's probably found a way to get results for people. And I think it comes back to that, right? What result can we create for someone? And I think, you know, personally, I would need probably to spend time with someone to get to know them well enough to think like, hey, well, I can be 80% sure I can get them a result. But again, the coach in me comes and thinking, do I really want to, you know, guarantee a result?
I think that the thing is that you start, if you charge that kind of prices, the expectations rise a lot. And I think a lot of coaches who charge those kind of amounts, they tend to give a lot. You know, they give interpretations, they give their insights, they give advice or tips or recommendations. I went to see a coach once for, well, I kind of went to see a business mentor, but he called himself a coach. But what I got from one of the sessions was just phenomenal, because like I could have really gotten it from reading a few books, but I think it was the combination of the advice paired with the experience from him in the context of my experience, and then the space where I could tailor it to what would work for me, and then role play. This was about sales and closing, you know, and something that very powerfully unlocked, and together with the accountability of then promising that coach that the next client that would come into a consultation, I would actually pitch the new program. You know, all of this together was a very powerful tool to unlock my business. I increased my prices 600% because I know I could, because I kept them at so low for so long that it was a bit stupid. At some point, one of my students came up and said, "Oh, I'm charging twice as much as you do," and I'm like, "Oh, what am I doing?" You know, and I knew why I was doing it, because I was scared, because the more you charge, the more you feel responsible, and the more you feel the pressure of now I have to deliver. When actually really it's not your job to produce the results. You need to create the space so that the client can produce the results. But again, like, depends on how you work, because some coaches say, I work for results, I'll provide the results and I'll get you there. You know, I don't work that way, you know, because I don't necessarily think that a coach is like that, but many coaches are, so I don't argue with it anymore. But yeah, something unlocked in that session, in that combination, and it made me thousands and thousands and thousands just in the next 6 weeks. You know, because I was charging so much more, and people, like a lot of the people that I worked with, they paid up front. So all of a sudden my coaching income went like, I don't know, tenfold in that month. You know, then it kind of evened out again, but like there was such a big step up, you know, 600% more. That was phenomenal. And it got me my return on investment straight away. And I paid an immense amount. I paid $3,000 for 6 sessions. And I thought how can I possibly, this was what? And I didn't know how much it was gonna be when I went to the consultation, and it was a real stretch for me. And I felt, okay, I'm gonna jump, I'm gonna commit, I'm gonna take a leap of faith. And after 6 weeks, I got my return on investment.
That's awesome.
You know, 6 weeks later, I had made $3,000 more than I would have otherwise done.
And I think there's some real value in what you said there. See, I think if
I'm glad.
You know, I think if someone pays that amount, you see, two coaches can say the same thing, right? And of course, our job is not so much to give advice, but sometimes even a question, right? Two coaches can, you know, ask the same thing or say the same thing. And I think when someone is more committed, so when someone pays 3,000 or someone is paying 300, that's a whole different way where the client shows up.
It gives power to the question, right?
Yeah, and I think it just, you know, so that commitment, there's no doubt it creates a huge level of commitment. And maybe another angle to look at it is, I think also, as the coach's demand, you know, as the demand grows for the coach, I think, you know, the coach can probably charge that amount per session.
So there's a supply-demand kind of thing going on, not just a results thing.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we know that, well, if you look at diamonds, right, I think it's probably marketing, because there are probably millions of diamonds around. But they market it as there's a limited...
It's a scam, and still buy your fiancé one.
But you know, as coaches, there's only one of us. And I think that's... Yes, there are a lot of other great coaches.
Oh, you can say same about diamonds.
Yeah.
They're all quite unique in the way that...
But you know, I think that, again, not necessarily saying that, you know, once you become so popular, you have to raise your prices. But, you know, our time is limited, and it just becomes more and more valuable. And that's probably where some coaches can actually say, well, this is how much I charge, and people want to experience that. Even if it's not for a result, I think sometimes it becomes like about the experience.
The experience of paying a real stretch to invest in you, in yourself, is powerful. That experience of having paid 3,000 for 6 sessions, I still talk about that. Not just here, just now, but also in consultations often. You know, it's like, because I know, either directly or indirectly, because I know how powerful it is to invest in yourself after that experience. And I take that and I radiate that when I talk to people, because I certainly didn't regret it. You know, I regretted a couple of moments, and there was certainly time when I questioned it. But like, I didn't regret it. It was a really, really good decision. And coming into a consultation saying that was a really good decision, that's really useful. And just the other point I wanted to make is it also depends on who are we working with. Because somebody's £50 is another one's 5,000. You know, if you earn 200, 300, 400k a year, and you ask them for 1,500 for a coaching package of 6 months, they're probably not going to be as committed as somebody for whom that's a real stretch.
Yeah.
You know, so prices can go up just so it's a stretch. It's not, one thing is how much do you pay for your time? You know, how much time do I have? And if there's so many people that want to work with me, then I can legitimately put the price up according to that business model. You know, other people might say, look, that's not fair, just you put the price up just because you're more in demand. You know, but that's a philosophical discussion, I think. But it certainly works that, like, the price that I charge is not necessarily for you. It's not necessarily for me to sustain my lifestyle or, you know, pay for all the things. The price is for my clients to be committed and a bit stretched. You know, because money buys commitment, and commitment buys success and change and transformation. You know, and money is a big factor in how committed people are. You know, it's one thing that we all share. Some people commit with their time and their resources. Traveling, I had a client traveling 2 hours to come and see me for an hour, traveling back 2 hours. That's commitment. I didn't really care about the money from that person so much because I knew they were fully committed. And as long as I get my minimum that I'm okay with working, you know, that's fine. So this is where a big amount can be for people with a lot of income.
I have a question. I'm getting the sense you've both probably seen some quite like top coaches who charge, you know, what I would consider a very large amount of money per coaching session. In terms of the experience received, that you felt you received, what were kind of the differences and the highlights, and does it really justify and validate the kind of the steepness and the difference in price?
I'd put that question to you because I think you've spent a lot more for coaching in your life than I did.
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question because I'll share some experiences that have been positive and some actually that haven't been that positive. And I won't mention names because for me it's, you know, it's not about that. But you know, one of my first coaches, you know, didn't really deliver kind of like what was on the tin, right? And I paid a lot of money, but yet that amount that I paid, that really committed me to actually to the process, right? And I actually went beyond and said, hey, you know what? Let me just Google what else can I do. So my coach is telling me this, well, what else can I do? And then I stumbled on, you know, I found a book that actually had a huge impact on me, right?
Can I know what book it is?
Yeah, yeah, it's the Prosperous Coach book.
The Prosperous Coach, okay.
Right?
Cool.
So that really helped me with building business. And then, you know, I had another experience where I paid a very large amount to coaching. It was £30,000.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, when I first met the coach, I didn't have the money. In fact, I remember I had £28 in my bank account. Right? And I just had like 15 clients, 15 life coaching.
It sounds like one of those stories. It's like when I met Jack Rich, I had £27 in my. It's a very specific number as well.
It was because I told him I felt so ashamed, right, of that amount. But I thought, let me just be transparent, because you know I met a coach at an event in Manchester, and then I said, hey, you know what? I want to talk to you, right? But I was honest from the beginning. I said, hey, look, I have a full practice, 15 clients, but they stopped, well, all the cash flow is kind of gone, and I have around £28 in my account. But it was very useful because he was happy to spend a few sessions with me. And it was more like a business coach, more coaching consulting, I guess. But I took a lot of action and made some money. I think I made around 12,000, and then I invested in that package. But there's definitely, if I look back, I'll probably do it again because I learned a lot from the process. But actually that huge fee created also an unhealthy relationship because there was so much pressure on, okay, I need to earn money. Well, you know, if I charge this much, I need 5 clients a month. If I charge this much, I just need 1 client. So what happened is I kept raising my price, and I've seen this with so many other coaches, and just there's this unhealthy vibe around me, right? So what happened at one point, kind of make it short, a long story short, I just cut my prices and actually went back. I think I went back like from 3,000 to 1,000 a month. And I said, hey, you know what? With this price, I can comfortably fill up my practice. And I again signed up, I think like 5-10 people, made a really good amount of cash flow, and gradually built my confidence. And I kept doing that. So what I really saw is that, you know, that kind of like that big fee, you know, and I think it has different effect on everyone, but that big fee just almost like paralyzed me. And it's kind of like all the time around my, like a cloud on top of my head.
I think that's super important point, because it's not just the pressure on the coach, it's also the pressure on the client. You know, I think we need to charge prices that we are comfortable with. At the same time, we shouldn't immediately trust what we're comfortable with. You know what I mean? Like, I've worked with so many coaches who really, a lot gets triggered when they put their prices up. You know, even very seasoned, very experienced coaches who charge a lot of money, as soon as they put their prices up, they go through this phase of feeling really uncomfortable, and they do other stuff, and then they make a connection. It's like, why am I going crazy? Why do I do these things that are so out of character? It's like, I recently put my prices up, you know, and that triggers a lot of like, imposter syndrome, or am I good enough? And like, now I have to deliver. And especially coaches who offer a lot of advice and recommendations, and they're a bit more directive, you know, that adds a massive amount of pressure. You know, if you're like Sivash and you say, hey, look, there's no guarantees, there's no refunds, you know, and you do that in the most positive way, then you're not making promises. But there's plenty of coaches out there that either make promises consciously, or the promise is sort of implied, so that people feel better about signing up.
Yeah, by the way, I've been there as well. I've made those mistakes, and I think, you know, we all go through that process. You know, I've made big promises, and then realized like, well, actually, this client's just sitting there looking for me to do some magic. Right?
And that's a horrible situation to
be in.
So
I think, you know, we can learn a lot from that. Yeah.
I think we have we will definitely have a session on contracting and agreement, because it popped up in a couple of our episodes now. And I think it's so important, it's so crucial. But like, in terms of what you, like, when you put your price up, think about discomfort. That's what I do a lot of work with coaches on. It's like, first of all, tune into how you're feeling, and if you feel uncomfortable, we try to connect that to why you're feeling uncomfortable. And often something opens in terms of the messages around money they've received, the mindset they have around money. I had to do a lot of work with a coach before I went to see that business mentor. I went to see somebody to work with, what's my relationship with Yannick, the businessman? Because initially I had a very bad relationship with business in general, and certainly me as a businessman. You know, there was a lot of negative associations with it, and like sales, I had lots of negative associations with it. So I had to work through some of my relationships with business related stuff. And so as I had worked through some of that, and then I had a price that I thought was fair, and I thought it would probably stretch people enough. In the beginning I had a sliding scale, which really helped. You know, because my fairness is one of my core values, so I wanted to have it fair for me and for them. And often I wasn't considering me in the fairness so much. So that was a really useful insight from a coach to know that this is also fair about me. But then once you put the price up and you feel uncomfortable, after 6 times, 7 times, 8 times pitching the new price, I felt completely different. You know, after 15, 20 times pitching that price, I felt I should probably charge a bit more to make it a bit more fair for me. You know, because we're always sitting at the shorter end of the stick when we charge. Because any amount of money that I've ever earned as a coach, at the end of the year I had spent it. It was gone. Whereas my clients were still walking around with all of the results. So I'm like, wait a second, that's not fair. So in a way, the more I charged the client, the more results they got from it. Just because they were more committed and they were doing the work more. They were, you know, not turning up for sessions late. They were doing work in between sessions. They were, like Sivash, going to look for other books. Because most of the work the client has to do between sessions. You know, they can't, if they just sit there and they expect you to fix their problem, or to fix their problem with 2 hours a month or 2 hours a week even. You know, it's not going to be enough. You need to commit yourself. you know, and in that sense, extraordinarily high prices can have those kind of results, because either you have a lot of money and other prices wouldn't just stretch you, or perhaps it's your time. How much time do I have available? Yeah. And I'll sell it to the highest bidder, you know. And you could also say, oh, I lost the third one. I'm recapping here. There was another point I wanted to mention. It'll come back to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, you know, it can be, you know, having said that, I don't know if that coach will, you know, watch this video, but that coach was actually really good. But it wasn't the right time for me, you know. And I think that's so important, because this year I paid, you know, significantly less. It was like 12,000 for a coach. But it was like so powerful and completely transformed my life. And it wasn't as much as a stretch, and I actually showed up a few sessions, you know, without any thinking what I need from the coaching, and my coach would just ask me, well, what would be useful for you today? So he has no agenda. But then I started reflecting and said, hey, I'm paying, right? I'm paying, and I need to better show up. And I get a lot out of it. And I think there's this phrase, I think it's called metabolism or something, and it's about finding the right person at the right time. Because you can be a great coach, or you know, you can find a great coach, but it might not be just the right time for you, right? And I think that really comes down also to the pricing. You know, for some people at the right time, maybe paying a bit more can have a huge, like, a powerful positive effect. Yeah, for some people, it can just kind of like do what they did to me, right?
Right.
It can just paralyze me,
you.
and I'm constantly thinking like, you know, fuck, like I need to pay this guy, like what's gonna happen?
Yeah.
And I think it's just really, that was really unhealthy.
So it's like relationships you can have. There's the right coach for the right time, and I do really believe in that. Sometimes you have a relationship with a coach, and it's the right coach for that time. For example, I worked with a very existential coach, and then I worked with a very business focused coach, and in combination, one after the other was perfect. If I would have switched them around, I would have not been ready. You know, that would have been a waste of time to work with a business mentor at that time.
Yeah.
And sometimes I guess we're just gonna have to have a really expensive one-night stand, and it can really move us.
But on that note,
yeah, let's leave it here. Thanks, guys. And if that was helpful, I'd love to hear your thoughts. You know, there's a comment section and stuff. And also, if you have other questions, do send them to us.
Yeah, maybe share with us what's been your experience about, you know, the most money you spent on a coach. And what's been maybe the most powerful experience? And was that also the most experience, or was that actually somewhere else?
Hey guys, if you enjoyed that, you know what to do. Hit subscribe and send us a question. See you next time.